Hello and welcome to Tuesday Night Live, the show where we ask all the big questions but don't take ourselves too seriously. When it comes down to it, all of us are searching for meaning in one way or another. We all have hopes and dreams and we want our lives to make sense. At the very least, I want to be able to explain why I do what I do. We all feel like we've got lots of questions but perhaps not many answers. And that's what this show is all about. We want to ask those questions together and have a conversation about them. And I want to be clear from the get-go, we think the answers are found when you get to know Jesus. Now you may think we're full of it, the answers are all somewhere else entirely. This show though is about that conversation. And we want to have that conversation with you. We want you to join in. We're going to share what we think and our questions, but we want you to come back with your questions and ideas. That's what's going to make this show work. And if you're asking questions or making comments you'd like us to respond to, use the hashtag mailbag in your comment and we'll know you want us to respond. If you're engaging via our YouTube channel, please like, subscribe, click the notification bell, share this video and make a comment or ask a question. All of that helps with the YouTube algorithm. If you're visiting our Facebook page or you've joined the group, welcome. My name's Andrew Sennett. Let me introduce you to my co-host, Ryan on the desk. Ryan, how you going?
Good, thank you. How are you?
Oh, not too foul. I like to call you Tech Sergeant Chen because you're there on the tech desk. What's it like over that side of the studio?
Oh, look, it's doing well. I'm appreciating the lights. I've got some good photos.
Yep.
So yeah, feeling comfortable.
Your first week on Tuesday Night Live, how you feeling?
Yeah, good. Bit nervous, but
Yep.
I'm here. I'm ready to go. Excited.
Yeah. So what should we know about you, Ryan, if we're going to listen to you each week?
Well, one thing that you can know about me is that I am a massive, gigantic nerd.
Super nerd.
It's a little bit vague, so let me give you a bit more information.
Sure.
If it's Star Wars or Star Trek, it's Star Wars all the way.
Okay.
If it's maths or English, 100% maths. Numbers are my thing.
Okay.
Or if it's DC or Marvel, Marvel can get stuffed. It's DC all the way.
Yeah, it does put you in the total nerd category because pretty much everyone else would choose the other option there.
Yeah.
So
well, I like to go against the flow.
Okay, yeah, right against the flow. So that's Ryan. There are some other tech folks wandering around the set. Give us a wave, guys. There's one, there's another one. Okay, I can assure you they're appropriately distanced for COVID, but we haven't given them a camera license yet, so maybe one day we'll see them, but we're hiding them away. And then there's me. My whole life, I've been asking questions like everyone. I think I've always asked questions, Why is my family so weird? I feel like I was picked up off the rubbish tip or adopted because I can't be related to these people, surely. And as I got older, I asked, why is it that if there is a God, he seems to make life so difficult? Or is it even worth caring? We live in Australia. It's heaven on earth already. More lately, I think, though, I've asked, if this is who God is, why doesn't everybody want to know him? Now, I've been given loads of opportunities in my life to ask and get answers to these questions. I spent 4 years formally studying and learning, and I've spent the last 20 years reading and interacting with every kind of person and idea. And now I spend my time helping others get answers for themselves. So that's us. It's time to get on with the show. Before we get into things, though, I want you to take part in the show. I want you to ask a question or make a statement in the comments. If you include the hashtag mailbag in your comment, we'll do our best to notice it and make it part of our conversation. The final segment of the show will be the mailbag segment, where we have a go at answering any and all of the questions we haven't gotten to yet. You can ask the questions during the live stream, or you can post or personal message them in the Facebook group or page during the week, and we'll try to get to them. Okay, time to get on with it. Ryan.
Hello.
What is your favourite real-life movie?
My favourite real-life movie is Bohemian Rhapsody.
Really? Bohemian Rhapsody?
I love Queen. They've got some classic hits. And Freddie Mercury's life I find very interesting.
Yeah, well, Queen is really my era, not yours, isn't it? They were a band from the 70s and 80s.
It's true, but I think they've made their comeback. I think this movie in particular has made Queen as a whole a comeback and multi-generational now.
Yeah. It's funny though, isn't it? Because I often find people who are fans of the bands don't actually like the movies about the bands because they tend to wreck it for them, and so the fans can be the angriest about the movies. Doesn't sound like you though. No,
I still thoroughly enjoyed the movie.
Yep.
However, I did learn. So the end of the movie.
Yep.
So spoilers ahead. But this is history, so it shouldn't matter too much. But
It's history spoilers.
yeah, history spoilers. The whole movie ends at this big Live Aid performance. They really build it up. The band has broken up and they get back together.
Yep.
Freddie Mercury gets diagnosed with AIDS, and that whole thing is pushing like this big emotional charge, so that when they do the Live Aid performance, they rock the house down. But after, I remember watching it and thinking that it's awesome. But then I watched a YouTube video only to learn that like the band didn't actually break up. Freddie Mercury didn't know he had AIDS until much longer after. They just kind of did that to make the show a bit, or the movie ending a bit better to watch.
Kind of wrecks the story a bit to know that, though, doesn't it? Because, they just did it for drama's sake. They changed the story around and they changed how things happened.
Yeah, and it kind of makes you question other things in the movie, if that really happened that way.
Yeah, you begin to wonder. There was I remember a press conference in that movie where Freddie went off at the reporters and did he really do that way?
Yeah.
Or did they jazz that up as well?
Yeah, was he that angry? Or...
Yeah.
But what about you? What's your favourite real life movie?
Oh, I do have a favourite real life movie, and it's my favourite real life movie would have to be, I think, Die Hard.
Yes, Die Hard. I'm too young to have lived during those times, but everyone I talk to, they say, I remember where I was when I heard about the terrorist attack at the Nakatomi
Plaza. It was terrible, and worldwide news. Yeah, no, but seriously, I think I did watch one recently that I really enjoyed. It was called Sully, and it was about this airline pilot who lost both engines of his jet just after takeoff and had nowhere to go, and actually crash landed his jet in the Hudson River in New York.
Wow.
And everyone survived. They didn't lose any lives, and so it was this big kind of hero moment where he this kind of quick thinking, and the actual crash itself goes for like a minute and a half. The movie goes for an hour and a half, and they managed to make this kind of big drama out of it.
Did they stretch it out?
Oh man, they massively stretch it out. And so it kind of starts with the accident, and then they have this whole process of them going through the accident investigation.
Yeah,
right. But they also make that mistake with people just to kind of get drama into the movie.
Like in Bohemian Rhapsody.
But even more serious. Like there's one of the crash investigators who's in the movie has got it really in for them, and thinks they're in the wrong and is going to get them. But he was never like that in real life, and people send him hate mail, because in the movie he just looks this. You just really don't like him in the movie because of the way they set him up. But it just wasn't like that at all. He was always on their side.
So this is fake news, right?
It was complete fake news, and he actually he sued the production company, and they had to apologise to him. I don't know if he got any money out of it, but
I hope so.
It was pretty big character assassination. So yeah.
Right. Yeah.
It just begs that question, doesn't it? How do you know when you're being told the truth?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
Yeah. When is it like fake news?
How do you tell?
I don't know, but I do know though. I've actually been on the end of a news story. Like I've had people I know in situations I've actually known, and watched the news do a story on it, or a newspaper write a story on it, and I've actually seen how they editorialise and distort things and misquote people. And so when I know the story, I know even the news can be a bit fake. Right. And yet, when I read the newspaper about other people, I kind of just believe it.
Yeah.
I find that really weird. Do you find that strange?
Yeah, I kind of I think it's easier. Maybe it's easier just to believe it. Or, I don't know.
Maybe it is. Yeah. It's funny because that's why we've started this show. Why tune in? Why listen to us? Why would you believe anything we say? And that's our big question for tonight. As we kick off Tuesday Night Live for 2021, as you tune in, we want to ask, why do we believe what we're told? Why do we believe what we're told? Why should you believe anyone when they tell you something? Well, it's time for a regular segment on the show that we're calling Storytime with Amelia. Each week we're going to meet real people and hear their real life stories about their encounters with Jesus. So sit back and enjoy.
Hey, I'm Amelia, a fan of potted plants, fairy lights and Jesus. I'm going to read the opening words of Luke's biography about Jesus, which acts as an intro to the whole book. Luke writes, "Many have undertaken to draw up an account of the things that have been fulfilled among us, just as they were handed down to us by those who from the first were eyewitnesses and servants of the word. With this in mind, since I myself have carefully investigated everything from the beginning, I too decided to write an orderly account for you, most excellent Theophilus, so that you may know the certainty of the things you have been taught.
Into it, I just want to remind you to add your comments and questions with the hashtag mailbag. So why do we believe the things that we're told? I think that most of us would say the most important reason we would believe something we're told is if it were true, if it was factual, if it actually happened, if it was evidence-based or logical or rational. Would that be true for you, Ryan?
Yeah, absolutely. That's the way you win arguments, right? If you've got a Google search and you get the Google search that's backing you up, you've won the argument.
Isn't that how you win an argument? Is the top Google search agrees with you, or the first?
That's exactly right.
Yeah.
Yeah. Don't worry about the rest.
Yeah. Forget all the rest. But it turns out, it might surprise you, it turns out that is actually the least important reason why people believe things.
Right.
It's not that the facts don't matter, they do matter, it's just that other things matter more. In fact, scientists say that often we believe the idea first and come to the facts later on.
Right, so what other things are affecting our decisions about what truth?
Yeah, okay, well, I think there's a few. One big reason that we believe what we're told is because it fits with our tribe. We believe things that our tribe or our group or community or social group tell us.
Right, so tribe being just people that we belong to or people that we want to belong to?
Yeah, yes, I think it's kind of, it's like groups of people that we're culturally associated with, people who have grown up alongside. So it might be language group, but it could be a family group or a town or a community group. It could be a sporting team.
Right.
You know, your group of people that you belong to, and you will tend to believe people that you are with.
Right.
And I think there are a few reasons for that. I think we believe our tribe because we want to belong, because belonging is more important to us than believing, than the truth. It's not that truth is unimportant, it is important, but belonging is more important to us, and it's a subconscious thing. You know, if we had to state things out loud, we'd say facts. But
so you're not actually thinking about this?
No, yeah. You're not thinking about this. It's just kind of a subconscious thing. You'll tend to believe your tribe, your people. But I think it's also because we trust that group we feel a part of. We know them. We're more likely to believe people we know like that. And I think you see this with kids. I remember this. I remember this distinctly with me when I was a kid. You know, when I was in primary school, when I was a little kid, my family, they weren't weird. They were just my family. That was the way we did things. That was what life was like. I just believed them. Yeah. But then I became a teenager, and all of a sudden, no, I didn't believe them anymore. Is that you as well?
Yeah, that's me. There's more than one thing that I remember. I want to do this, or I want to believe that, and it was because my mum believed or said to do the other thing.
Yeah. And it's the era of the eye roll.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah.
Where you stop listening, and I think that's because there's a group of people that you long or yearn to belong to. This peer group that they call it peer pressure. Yeah. And so yes, it's about a group you belong to or you want to belong to, and you will tend to believe them.
Right. Yeah. So could you say if you think that they're on your side, or if you want to be on their side, then you're more willing to believe them?
Yeah, I think that's probably true.
At a subconscious level.
Yeah, yes, absolutely, yeah. And I think that's true. We just have that affinity with them and we're culturally connected, yeah. Yeah,
okay. Yeah, I think that's true. But for me, I find, sometimes you get the feeling of someone, they just seem trustworthy. There's just a good vibe. So do you get that too? Do you know what I mean by that?
Yeah, no, this is actually part of this kind of research as well. The scientific people, I don't know what they call it, but I call it the likability factor. If someone is likable to you and you see them as having integrity, you'll believe them. So, someone who's a lovable rogue, you're not going to believe what they say. But if you think they've got integrity, if they seem like they have integrity to you, and you like them, you'll believe them.
Yeah.
Absolutely, yeah. And I think we do this all the time, don't we?
Yeah. Do you know Daryl Davis?
I think I do know who you're talking about, yeah.
Yeah, I think I've got a graphic of him. If Leslie, can you get the graphic up? Yeah, so the guy on the left,
yep.
Daryl Davis is a black jazz musician,
yep.
And he's really famous for befriending and convincing Ku Klux Klan members, like the guy on the right, to leave the group and convince them that they're wrong.
That is so wild.
Yeah. But the thing is, he doesn't just, he doesn't lay into them.
Does he wear the robes and the hat?
No, he doesn't assimilate. That's certainly not what he does.
Yeah.
But he he becomes their friend.
Right.
Like, and there's like if he's got some TED Talks, like, you know, there's guys that he is convinced, not just like Ku Klux Klan members, but actual like national director kind of level.
Yeah,
of
grand
people.
cluckers. And that
Yeah,
sort of
yeah,
people.
yeah. And they've got not just the white ones; they wear like the green dragon
Yeah.
kind of stuff.
Oh yeah. Wow. They wear green dragon outfits.
Yeah, yeah. I think it's green and purple.
You feel like you're too much into this, right?
Yeah, I think his TED Talk, he had the costumes.
Yeah.
Like he had them on show.
Wow.
But yeah, he talked about how over time he would chat to them, they would see him, and by his, you know, his charisma and his just
Yeah.
friendliness, they
Yeah.
believed him.
Yeah. It's a great example, isn't it? Because the facts were on his side. Like the facts were on his side, but the facts weren't persuasive to those people.
No.
Right? The facts weren't persuasive to the Klan.
Plenty of people have told them that they're wrong.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, and they still believe it. But it was him. He was persuasive because he was likable, and they saw him as having integrity, and they built a relationship with him. And that, I guess there's a point, isn't it? If you want to change someone's mind, don't argue. Become their friend and be a person of integrity. And if you're like that, you will be more persuasive.
Yeah, right.
That's probably how to win friends and influence people, isn't it?
Yeah, that's it.
Yeah.
But you said there was another reason.
Yeah. There's one final reason why we believe what we're told, and it's because what we're told fits with what we already believe about ourselves. That is, what we're told makes sense of our personal story or experience.
Right.
I don't know if that's grabbable by you.
Yeah, I think I remember reading an article that, like, you know, if we already agree with someone, it's like about 9% of things that we're just ready to believe them about the next thing that they say.
Yeah. I think you meant 98%.
Oh, what did I say?
You said 9%.
Oh, sorry. Yeah, 98%. Yeah.
So if you agree with someone about a lot of stuff, then you're likely to still agree with other things that they tell you. Yeah. It makes so much sense, doesn't it?
Yeah.
I think if what you're saying goes against everything I think about myself, if it goes against my whole story, my whole lived experience, I just won't be able to process it. It's too uncomfortable. It's too difficult. And so I'll make excuses. I'll fob it off. I'll throw lots of argumentative dust in the air because I don't actually want to confront. The facts are hard when they confront who I am and what I believe at heart.
Would you just call that confirmation bias? Like, is that what that is?
I think that's the definition of confirmation bias, isn't it?
Yeah.
It's right there. And I think, once again, it's a subconscious thing, but I think it's more important to us than facts are. That's what the research tends to say. It's not that facts aren't important. They are important. We're all invested in the truth. But for most of us, most of the time, truth is a slow process. As one guy I read put it, belief comes quickly, but the truth follows slowly behind.
Right.
And I think that's because the truth can be uncomfortable. It is not easy to change your mind because it means changing the course of your life.
Right. So
yeah.
So just to summarise, the things that we like facts, and facts are good.
Yep.
But the things that really change our minds or convince us that something's true on a subconscious level are things like, you know, the likability of someone, or wanting to belong to a specific tribe, or already being on board with that person. So those are the things that are going on in our head, and then there's also facts.
Also facts. And I think what happens for most of us is the facts catch us up. And our life is easier if the facts measure up to the things that we believe. And our life is harder and a lot more uncomfortable if the facts don't actually match up with what we believe.
Right, okay.
And so, and what we'll tend to do then is spend a lot of time then searching Google for the first person who agrees with me. You know, we'll spend a lot of time trying to confirm the things that we believe rather than addressing uncomfortable facts.
Sure. Well, we've got a quick question from Stanley.
Oh, yeah.
About the tribes. He asks if you're a part of more than one tribe, like, how do you identify which one's opinions you listen to?
Well, I wonder if it might match what you're talking about. Okay, so you might not agree with your soccer teammate about politics or religion, but if they're connected to you in other ways, if they're part of other communities, if they overlap with you enough, then you might find them more believable. Yeah, it's a good question.
Yeah.
I think over time you get to know what kind of a person you are. Would that be fair? Like, is that true for you?
Yeah, I think, and particularly, there's tribes that you want to belong with, but some of them, like some are soccer, that's about a tribe about entertainment, but then there might be, you know, you'll believe, if someone's wearing a lab coat, I'll probably believe them if they say something scientific.
Yep.
And I don't understand them.
Yeah. We all like to be in the science club. And so we all like to think that that's the group of people we believe in. And that's why advertisers actually use lab coats and test tubes in ads. Because we literally go, well, I have to agree with this person. We just kind of click, go, oh, well, of course, they're an expert. They've got a lab coat on.
Really? There you go.
And so I'll buy that mouthwash, or I'll use that hairspray or whatever it is. Yeah.
Great. Okay. So why are we talking about this, Sano? Let us.
Why we even put this up?
Yeah.
Well, for one, I think it is actually useful to know how we make decisions about what we're told. It's useful to know that there's more going on there for us, and it might help us when we feel uncomfortable about truth, and just to address that.
Yeah, and it's interesting because like this is true whether you're religious or not, right?
Yeah.
This is everyone. This is what we're all like.
This is universal, and one of the funny things is often you'll get accused. Like as a religious people, we often get accused by non-religious people of being kind of exactly like this. That you just basically blind belief, and you don't actually believe the facts. But the reality is we're all like this, and it might actually cause all of us just to step back a little bit from the argument and actually think about that all of us are like this. And perhaps all of us need to ask serious questions about what we believe. Yeah.
Yeah. That's taking a step back. Like it'd be so helpful to know that these are the things that are going around in your head.
Yeah. It would be nice. It would be good to know.
Yeah.
And I think as well, to be fair, we want you to believe us. Okay. The reason we're doing this show is that we think that what Jesus tells us about ourselves and our lives, the world around us and God, is true. We're convinced that it's true. And so we want you to agree with us. So consider what Amelia read to us in Storytime. What are the two reasons Luke gives us to believe what he says about Jesus? Well, the first one is the truth or facts. He talks about eyewitnesses and carefully investigating the truth. Luke wants us to believe him because he thinks what he's telling us is true. It actually happened and plenty of people saw it, and he's carefully investigated all the facts, or so he says.
Yeah, isn't it true that eyewitness testimony isn't that reliable though? Does that kind of put a spanner in the works? Yeah,
well, I think yes and no. I think you're right. There's loads of research out there that tells you that eyewitness testimony can be very unreliable. But have I ever told you the story about the drug crazed bikie?
Yes, a lot. But
several times.
To be fair, it's a very good story.
It's
and
a cool
I wouldn't
story.
Want to stop you from saying it again.
It is a cool story. So so I'll just tell you again.
Please do.
Yeah. So at one point in my life, I got a job on Saturday mornings labouring for a butcher, and I had to drive from where I lived in Newtown down to Rockdale, and this is the first day of work, right? The first Saturday I've ever worked for this butcher. And it's 6 o'clock in the morning, and I'm driving on the south on the Princess Highway in Sydney over the Cooks River. And it's a 6 lane, so it's 3 lanes each way, and there's no divider between the lanes. And so it's just 6 lanes of road. And it's foggy, right? So it's quite a heavy fog, but I can see ahead of me this car, and it's a beautiful brand new maroon Jag, and it's weaving across the road. And it went while I watched it all the way from the left-hand lane on my side of the road, across those 3 lanes, across on the other side of the road to the far left lane of the other side of the road, and then all the way back. And so I'm just thinking, this guy, he's out of it. He's drunk, and and so I'm thinking, how do I get past him and get out of this? Because he's going quite slow. And so I come up to him and I manoeuvre past, and I take off, and I'm fine. I'm past him. I think I've dodged a bullet. Well, a couple of k's down the road, I stop at an intersection, and sure enough, bang, he just slams straight into the back of me. Stinking lights. And so I fair dinkum. So I get out of the car, and I'm walking back to this car, and a little red number pulls in behind the Jag, and these 2 guys pop out, and they're really angry, and they're going, he sideswiped us before he hit you, he's drunk, we're going to get him out of the car before he kills someone. And so we both come up to this window, and the window buzzes down, and it's this kind of oldish guy, big head, and he is just out of it. Like his eyes, he's just completely out of it. And these guys are yelling, going, "You're drunk, you idiot, get out of the car before you kill someone." And I just kind of looked at him and I said, "Are you all right, mate?" And his head's weaving around like this, and then all of a sudden, he just floors it, and he's gone. He takes off, and we looked at each other, and we jumped in our cars, and we take off after him.
Man, that is just not something I'd do. I would just call the police at that moment.
I don't know what. Anyway, we just took off. We were after him, but he was gone. He was like, it was really thick fog. He just disappeared. He was way beyond us. Anyway, but we caught up to him a couple of k's down the road because he'd gone through this major intersection and completely totaled the Commodore. And so there's this Commodore over here, smashed up. There's his car sitting in the middle of the intersection. And so I pull up behind him. This other car pulls up in front of him, and we get out and we think we've got to get this guy out of the car. And so we start walking towards his car, and the door opens. And he gets out, and he's got a rebel bikie jacket on and a gun sticking out of his pants. And we just looked at him and went, whoa! And kind of, we just walked over here, and he walked that way and just kind of toddled off and disappeared. And someone called the cops and used the G word, and the cops were just there in like 2 seconds flat. And there were 5 or 6 cop cars, and there was more to the story, but I feel like I've got to stop it there. But the cops began to take statements, and they talked to all the different people who were there. And so they took my statement, they took the statement of the 2 guys in the red car, they took the statement of other people who'd been at that intersection. And sure, they're all eyewitness testimony, and there would have been things that people would have forgotten. Although I've got to say, this is like 20-something years ago, and it is vivid in my mind. I still remember that day with absolute clarity. But there'll be details I will have got wrong or that have kind of shaded over time. But as they took several statements from lots of different people, what they did was they built up an accurate picture of what happened. And I think that's what you talk about in terms of eyewitness testimony. If there's one eyewitness, it's kind of a bit shaky. But when you've got 10 or so eyewitnesses and they're all telling the story from different angles, you actually get an accurate picture of what happened. It's actually really good eyewitness testimony in that sense. And
so that's what Luke's doing. Right
yeah,
now.
I think that's what Luke's doing. Sorry, to get back to Luke.
Yeah.
Luke's story. And out of mine, I think that is exactly what Luke's doing. He's building that, he's investigating, he's talking to... And there were hundreds of people around. Like, it's not as if he had no one to go to. There were so many people who had their stories to tell. And so there's lots of information there that he can build into his picture. And that's what he's claiming to do. The first big idea is truth and facts and eyewitnesses, and that's what Luke is claiming.
Right, okay.
But there's a second part to what Luke's claiming. And to many of us, it's a more important factor in accepting or believing what he says. Because he talks about fulfillment. He talks about the things that have been fulfilled among us.
What do you mean by that? What's been fulfilled?
Yeah, I think that's really interesting because the idea of fulfillment, we tend to think about, let's get into weird arcane stuff about prophecy and all that sort of thing.
It's very vague, isn't it? Yeah.
But I think what Luke's getting on about is that what Jesus is on about fits with your story. See, we're part of a whole bunch of different stories. You've got your own personal story, my story of my life, and I can tell the things that happened to me in my life about, school and friends and uni and work and all that sort of stuff. But we also have family stories. You have those stories about your family that identify you as a group. You have friend stories and team stories. You have even, funnily enough, the story of you in your town. Where do you fit in your town? And your country. I don't know about you, but I remember vividly when Australia won the America's Cup yacht race back in the early 1980s. And I vividly remember it because the Australian Prime Minister got onto camera in the morning of the Cup win, swilling beer and saying that any boss who sacked you for not coming to work this morning was a bum.
That was said on TV.
That was said on TV by the Prime Minister with beer in hand.
Oh, man.
And that's really Australia. Like that's that song Land Down Under by Men at Work.
Yeah.
That was the song for that team in that race.
I feel like the Steve Bradbury winning that gold medal
Yes.
is the Australian story.
Yes, if you remember the Winter Olympics, our very first Winter Olympic medal. Yep.
That's just, we know we're crap at Winter Olympics, but so
and
good.
that was a magical moment. I remember
So
I laughed
good.
so hard. And I felt at one with all Australians that night. And so there are moments there where we identify with our bigger stories than just me. That I'm part of a big story, I'm part of Australia. That we use the Gallipoli story as a unifying factor for Australians. That legend forms part of the story of Australia. And I want to say in the bigger sense, we are all part of the story of humanity. Something that transcends race and culture and nationality.
That's what Luke's getting at, right? The story of humanity.
I think he is in the end getting at to the story of humanity. What he's saying is, if you understand who Jesus is, if you understand what I'm telling you about Jesus, then it will fit with your story. The story of Jesus is part of all of our stories. It's what unites us together. It's like today we talk about climate change as this existential challenge. You know, people talk about that this should unify humanity because we've got to do something about this. When I was a kid, it was the ozone hole, that we all had to act together as internationally as one humanity to close up the ozone hole. Today we talk about climate change. And I think what Luke is saying is if you understand the story of Jesus, you'll understand that it's actually part of your story, that you're part of this one story of all of humanity. That Jesus makes sense of who we are, of our shared hopes and struggles, of our desire for a better world, our desire to be better people. Yeah.
Yeah, okay.
So does that make sense?
Yeah, so Jesus what Luke's saying is that Jesus is at the heart of the story of our life.
Yeah. And he's saying if you see this, if you get Jesus' story, you get your own story because it's all of our stories. Jesus' story is my story and
that is a big
your
claim.
Story. It is a big claim.
Okay.
Right at the outset.
Yeah, so that's... okay, I've talked to people about like Christianity, about Jesus before, and I've seen other people talk. I've seen people, tell me their survivor stories about people trying to tell them about Jesus, and sometimes that's just not how I display or I've heard Christianity be told. It seems more like a story, like I want to win a fight.
I feel like sometimes we don't do a great job as Christian people communicating what Christianity is all about. When you talk with Christians, sometimes you can get the idea that they want you to become a Christian because they're right and you're wrong, that they just want to win a fight. Who knows, maybe you're like that the same. Maybe you want them to kind of convert away from the Christian faith because you're right and they're wrong. You just want to win a fight. I've got to say, I don't think I'd want to become a Christian after arguing with me sometimes.
But the way that Luke's approached it is just, it's so different.
Yeah, so totally different here.
I don't feel like he's trying to win a fight.
No, he's not telling a story to win a fight. He wants to win you.
Yeah.
He wants you to see that the story he's telling is actually your story too. He wants to show you that you're already on board if only you see Jesus the way he sees him.
Yeah, right.
So it's not that Luke isn't interested in the truth. He definitely is interested in the truth. He wants you to be certain that Jesus died for us all and that Jesus is risen from the dead. Those are the central facts of the Christian faith. And he does want to say that they're true. But he realises that the process you need to go through to see how Jesus' story and yours are connected is important. You need to see why this story makes sense of your life.
Yeah, I think that makes... I'm really interested by that. I'd love to know what people in the comments or in the chats are thinking about that. So please, post a comment, type in the chat. Do you resonate with this, or do you think that Luke's full of it? I guess.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah.
We'd love to know. So please, and if you've got your questions, the mailbag segment is coming up in just a second. So please use the hashtag mailbag. Get your questions in the comments or in the chat. But before we get to that, we do realise we've been talking for a while now, and you might need a break for a couple of minutes before we get there. And so we're going to jump to our next segment, which is called Toilet Break. Every week about this time, we're going to give you about a minute to do the necessities, come back feeling refreshed and relieved, so that we can concentrate and ask these and answer these questions. So time for toilet break. All right, so we've got our first question
Yep.
from Michael, and it's directed at me, but
Okay.
you can always pitch in if you want.
Oh, no, I'm happy to leave it to you.
Michael wants to know what the best kind of apple is.
Okay, I can't leave that one to you, but go on.
Yeah, well, it's definitely got to be a pink lady.
Yeah, that's what everyone seems to say. I got really shouted down last year for even mentioning a different kind of apple.
Because there is no other apple.
Well, apparently, when I was a kid, I only thought there were two kinds of apples, red and green. And it really surprised me when I became an adult and realised there's actually a gazillion different varieties. So I would just say red apple's the best kind of apple.
Yeah, I just assumed that all the other apples are just to fill up the space at the grocery.
Yeah. I think we were pretty poor, and so it was really just red and green for us. But, yeah.
Great. Okay, well, there's the first one. Michael has another question. I think this is for you. It's who is Mrs. Frager?
Oh, who's Mrs. Frager? That's my family through my mum. The Fragers is part of that kind of family. There's a guy named, I can't remember, Edward Frager. There's a Frager who came from Portugal to Australia 100 or so years ago, maybe a bit further ago. And he spawned this huge family of Fragers. And so I'm part of the Frager family. So anyone out in the central west of New South Wales that's a Frager, I'm probably related to, and several others around the world.
Right, I'm assuming that's a direct question based on your frame
my
behind
little
you.
little thing on the back there.
Yeah.
Yep.
So she's a local family in Bathurst.
Well, there are locals, Fragers. They're in Bathurst and Orange area, but they're also in Penrith, in Sydney, and all over the place now.
Great. Okay. Well, next we'll go to the next question.
Yep.
And so this is from Kelly. People say you need the Holy Spirit to believe in Jesus. How does our tribe, the facts, who we are or who we like, have any weight on that belief?
Okay, that's a really good question, isn't it? Kelly, by the way, also said that cheapest apples are the best apples.
I think that was Kyle.
Was that Kyle, was it? Oh, yeah. It was Kyle, not Kelly. Sorry, Kelly. That's a really good question. And I can't see it, so I can't even... He's asked it, and it's gone. So that's about the fact that there's a... I think one of the things you need to realise is there's a... I guess what you'd say a theological reality to what's going on. That is, when you're a Christian, you recognise that God is at work. He's at work in our lives. But there's also the way that God works. And the way that God works is through ordinary means. And so becoming a Christian is about an act of God, if you like, but it's also about an ordinary act of hearing a message and believing it and understanding it. And so those two things happen at the same time. So I'm not sure if that's helpful, but I would say you can't have one without the other. And that God doesn't kind of just zap you with some electricity and all of a sudden you're a Christian. No, God puts people in your life. And for most people, when they tell their story about becoming a Christian, the first part of that story is, I knew these Christians or this Christian and they were something special. They were something different. And I began to think about what they said, which was so different to what I thought. But I looked at their life and it was so compelling. And so it's a combination of true things that change us, but also the people that are thrown in front of us. Yeah.
Yeah, great. We'll go to the next question. Ellie asks, do you reckon more people are Christian because their friends are and they like them, or because they've looked at the facts of who Jesus is?
Yeah,
does that matter?
Yeah, it's a really good question. And part of what I'd say is, what's the difference?
Can you elaborate a bit on that?
Both things can be true, can't they?
Yep.
That people become Christians because of other people, but also because they agree with the facts that those people speak.
Do you think it matters, though, that there are some Christians that have become Christian because they've got friends that are Christian, or do you think it's better? I think what Ellie's getting at is that better or worse than someone who believes because they've looked at Jesus and they've been convinced by those facts?
I don't know that it is better or worse. I think, though, the facts have to catch you up, don't they?
Yeah.
And I think this is perhaps you do see this with people, that they jump on a bandwagon with people, and then it doesn't last because the facts themselves aren't confirmed with them. They don't actually, in the end, agree with them. But I think this is a process people go through, and I think you see this, and you see this even in the way the Bible talks about conversion. because you put people in front of people. You know, the Bible uses words like hospitality, which means stranger love. You actually love people, and that is what attracts them to the faith in the first place. And then that might cause them to address the facts. And so I don't know that it's as neat as saying someone becomes a Christian and they're completely blind to the facts. I think what I'm trying to say is that people are attracted to the faith through their relationships with people, through their involvement with different groups. And so think about children. Think about many of you guys who you grew up in Christian homes. Does that mean you're brainless, numb people who've never thought about anything? No, it doesn't. But you grew up in the faith and you didn't grow up questioning it. You grew up in that community. But there were times in your life where you needed to address the facts, weren't there? And I think that's true for everybody. And for somebody who converts to the Christian faith, it happens perhaps a little bit differently because they didn't grow up in a household of Christians. That their relationship between the facts and the kind of relationships is a little bit different. But they both need to happen together. But it's just a matter of how that process works its way out.
Okay.
I don't know if that makes sense at all. What do you reckon, Ryan?
Yeah, I think I resonate with the idea that, like, if you haven't really thought about maybe the scientific or the evidence-based approach, that eventually either people talk about it, because I've had lots of different conversations about that, or something happens in your life where you're forced to look at that because you go, this better be true, or this, I really hope it's true, and I've got to find the answers.
Yeah.
And I think there are some things that happen. It's happened for me. I'm sure it's happened for other people that it really, it forces you to find the answer.
Yeah. It pushes you beyond yourself. And so I think for someone who's converting, in either way, they come up against uncomfortable things. And it's those connections to different kinds of people that will drive them towards or away from those things. Yeah.
Stanley's got one other question he's just put it in now. I'll ask it very quickly. It's just another question about the tribes.
Yeah.
He's wondering about how a tribe influencing its followers differentiate from manipulation. Do you think it is manipulation, or is it sometimes?
Oh, that's a really good question. I think it certainly can be manipulative, can't it? And manipulation is about deception. And so it's being deliberately mistruthful. And certainly we know that there are families that are abusive, that manipulate their children. There are cults that manipulate people using relationships into their cult. That's the very definition of cult-like behaviour, isn't it? That manipulative behaviour. And so certainly it can be manipulative, and any group can be manipulative. That's actually about the relationship, isn't it, between these kind of connections with people and the facts themselves. And I think there's not much difference actually between the way cults manipulate people and the way advertising manipulates people. Because doesn't advertising do the same thing?
Yeah, well, I get convinced that I want it, that's for sure.
And you do that because they manipulated you by using the lab coat, for instance, or the kind of facade of science. They're trying to promote a product, not necessarily with truth, but with a connection to something that you agree with. And certainly cults do that sort of thing. They call it, they love bomb people. They've got techniques that they use to draw people into relationship and addle their brains. Yeah.
So would you say, like, if they're using the lab coat techniques, but what they're saying is still true, they're just doing that to really convince you? Does that make it less
I don't think the
manipulative?
truth value is very big in advertising.
So I mean more in terms of maybe the moral part behind it.
Yeah, yes, we can. Yeah, I wonder if we could spend a whole episode arguing about the morality of advertising. But
it's all right. We might move on to the last question.
Yep, sure.
Which is from Mac, and he asks, how can we believe that Luke says, what Luke says when it was written over 1,000 years ago?
Yeah, look, that's a really great question, Mac. How can we believe what Luke says? Because it was written so long ago. And I guess that's a thing, isn't it? We tend to believe the new, and we think the old is a bit untrustworthy. Old is like, why bother with the old? Because we've got the new, and the new is more up to date. The new is better. The new is superior. The new is more tech savvy, and so it must be better.
Well, people back then, they believed things way easily. Right?
Yeah, and so we often do this. We often say people back then are different from people now. And that's actually a fallacy. I'm not sure what to call that fallacy, but it's a common fallacy that we believe people in a different age were somehow stupider, more gullible, different to us. But they weren't. And it shouldn't surprise us because people are people and people have always been people. The world didn't suddenly become smarter, right? We've grown in tech. We know more things. The sum of human knowledge is greater. But the kind of humans who know things have never changed. The kind of humans who were dealing with the massive human knowledge 2,000 years ago are the same humans who are dealing with the massive human knowledge today. They're not morally different and they're not substantially different. And so people who lived back then were just as skeptical. And you actually see this in the story. If you read Luke's story of Jesus, you'll see skeptical people. And the funny thing is, some of the most skeptical people are Jesus followers. And so they're actually not simply gullible. And Luke will want to make the argument over and over again, deal with the things as they are. And in terms of whether you believe these things because they're old, then you're actually talking about history. You know, why should we believe history? And I think there are really good reasons. We don't really have a lot of time tonight to go into a full explanation of why history is worth listening to and how and why. But I can tell you that academic historians of the ancient world, they consider the New Testament Gospels to be some of the most accurate and good history going around in the ancient world. And so for ancient history, the Gospels in the New Testament, Matthew, Mark, Luke and John, are some of their best source material and most accurate source material. So professional historians trust it. That's about all I can say now. I guess we could actually go round and round on that one and come back to some resources and books. Perhaps we'll do that in coming weeks, is post a few resources you can look at for that.
Yeah, well, I think that's all we've got time for. And that's the last question as well.
Oh, brilliant. Okay. Well, maybe we'll sign off. So thanks very much for tuning into the first week of the new Look Tuesday Night Live. Please keep the questions coming in the comments. You know, we love to have them. And if you have a lot of questions, if you join the Facebook group or go to the Facebook page, I'm pretty sure you can personal message a comment there if you'd rather keep it anonymous. And we'll see you next Tuesday night at 7.
See you later.
See you.